I should have known something was wrong the moment Amir offered to carry my bag. He never did things out of kindness. Not for me, not even for Layla. Still, I told myself to be grateful. After all, it had been months since my daughter last called me anything other than, "Mom, I'm busy." So when she invited me on a family road trip, my heart leapt like a child's. I thought maybe she wanted to make things right. I spent the night before packing too much. Sunscreen, scarves, even her favorite snacks. Hope is a foolish thing. It makes you forget the past. The morning sun painted the driveway gold when they arrived. Layla sat in the passenger seat, sunglasses covering half her face. Amir stood beside the car, his hand resting on the roof, his grin too tight. "Ready, Mom," Layla said, her voice clipped, distant. He nodded. "I've been ready since you called." She didn't smile. We started the drive just after 9. The city blurred behind us, tall buildings giving way to dry hills and empty roads. I tried to start small talk. "How's work? How's your new house?" But each answer was shorter than the last. Amir had the music turned up just loud enough to drown my words. Layla scrolled through her phone, her reflection cold against the window. I stared at them both, wondering when my daughter's voice had started sounding like a stranger's. It used to be different. When Layla was little, she used to sing in the back seat every time we drove anywhere. She'd make me pull over just to watch sunsets, laughing about how the sky looked like mango ice cream. Now she couldn't even look at me. "Layla," I said softly, "I'm glad you wanted this trip. It's been too long." "Yeah," she replied, still not turning. "It has." Her fingers tightened around her phone. Amir's eyes met mine briefly in the rearview mirror, then flicked away. We stopped at a gas station around noon. The desert air hit like fire when I stepped out. Amir filled the tank while Layla disappeared inside to buy drinks. I caught our reflection in the car window. Him tall and sharp, me smaller, older, worn. For a moment, I saw how far I'd drifted from their world. When Layla returned, she handed me a bottle of water without meeting my gaze. "Here," she said curtly. "Thank you, sweetheart." No reply. Back on the road, I noticed Amir's hands tighten around the steering wheel. The road stretched into emptiness. Sand, rocks, the occasional dying shrub. "Where exactly are we going?" I asked. "Just exploring," Amir said. "Thought you'd like some scenery." "Scenery?" I laughed lightly. "There's nothing but desert out here." "That's kind of the point," he muttered. I frowned. "What do you mean?" Layla shifted in her seat. "Mom, can we not argue? It's supposed to be peaceful." "I wasn't arguing," I whispered. But she had already turned away. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was thick, suffocating. Even the car seemed to groan under its weight. I tried to focus on the landscape. Dunes glowing under the sun, heat waves rippling in the distance. But something inside me twisted. This wasn't just a road trip. Felt like a journey toward something final. After another hour, Amir pulled over to the side of the road, pretending to check the map. Layla leaned closer to him, her hand brushing his arm. Their voices dropped low. "What did you tell her?" Amir asked. "Nothing," Layla said. "Just drive." "Maybe now's a good time," he murmured. My chest tightened. A good time for what? I wanted to ask, but their tone made me freeze. We passed a half-broken sign that read, "End of Service Road." My stomach sank. "Amir, are we lost?" He chuckled. "You worry too much." Layla sighed. "It's fine, Mom. He knows where he's going." But her voice cracked at the end, barely audible. The air inside the car grew warmer, heavier. Sweat slid down my back. I thought about all the times I'd defended Amir. How I'd given him money for his first business. How I'd trusted him when people whispered he was controlling. Maybe love blinds you, but motherhood makes you deaf too. You don't hear the warning until it's too late. Around us, the landscape turned harsher. No trees, no shade, no sign of life. Just endless sand. I pressed my hand against the window. The glass burned my skin. "Amir, maybe we should head back before it gets dark." He didn't answer. Layla. She stared out the window, eyes distant, lips trembling. Something inside me broke a little. Sweetheart, did I do something wrong? Her shoulders tensed. Please, Mom, she said, voice almost shaking. Just stop talking. That hurt more than I expected. I leaned back, staring at the endless horizon. The road behind us was gone, erased by dust. That's when I heard it. A whisper, soft but clear. Layla leaned toward Amir and said something I couldn't catch. He smirked. And in that single cruel expression I realized, this trip wasn't about love or forgiveness or family. It was about something else entirely. I was invisible in that car. Not because they ignored me, but because they wanted me to feel erased. The farther we drove, the more the world disappeared. The neat asphalt of the highway turned to dust and gravel. The city vanished behind dunes, and with every passing mile, I could feel my own life, the years I'd given them, dissolving into the sand. Layla sat stiff beside Amir, her face half hidden behind those dark sunglasses. The girl who once couldn't stop talking to me during car rides now stared into nothing. I tried again. Layla, remember when your father used to take us on these desert trips? You loved the open sky. She didn't answer. Amir reached for the volume knob and turned the music up, loud enough to swallow her silence. A man's laughter boomed from the radio, followed by a song about freedom. Freedom, I almost laughed. I stared out my window, pretending not to notice, pretending not to feel the sting. They talked softly between themselves, their words a hum under the music. I caught fragments. Papers, done, she doesn't know. I told myself I was imagining things. I was tired, that's all. Mothers always find excuses for their children's cruelty. The sun sat low behind us, washing the sand in gold. The wind whipped through the half-open window, drying the sweat on my forehead. I glanced at my daughter, my only child, and tried to remember the last time she'd hugged me without hesitation. Had been years. Maybe since her wedding. The day she married Amir, I saw a change in her eyes. He stood too close, she laughed too carefully. Still, I told myself love just makes people different. I was wrong. Where exactly are we going? I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm. Amir didn't look at me. You'll see. It's a surprise. Surprise. I tried to smile. At my age, surprises can be dangerous. Layla exhaled sharply, frustrated. Mom, can you please not make everything sound dramatic? Her tone sliced through me. I'm just asking, I said quietly. Then stop asking, she muttered. For a few minutes, the car filled with nothing but wind and static. My heart thudded against my ribs, too loud in my chest. I pressed my hand over it, thinking of the loan I'd given them. The money I'd worked my entire life to save after my husband's death. They said they needed it, just to get started. I'd signed the check without hesitation. Parents never think their children will turn that kind of love into a weapon. Amir finally spoke, voice casual. Layla, did you pack everything? Yeah. The documents too. My stomach tightened. What documents? They both froze for half a second. Then Amir chuckled. Oh, just work papers. You wouldn't understand. He was wrong. I understood too well. The tone of a liar sounds the same at any age. As the road narrowed, I noticed something unsettling. No signs, no cars, not even tire tracks except our own. Just sand, wind, and emptiness. The air conditioner had stopped working, and sweat pooled under my scarf. I tried to open the window, but Amir's voice came out sharp. Don't. Sand will get in. Obeyed. Always obeyed. That's what mothers do, even when every instinct screams otherwise. We passed an abandoned gas station, a broken roof, shattered glass glinting in the sun. Layla turned her head away as if afraid to look. You know, I said softly, when I was young, your father used to say people who forget where they come from end up lost. Amir laughed under his breath. Sounds like he was talking about himself. Clenched my jaw. Be careful, Amir. His grin widened in the mirror. Or what? Layla's hand brushed his arm, a silent plea for calm. But his smirk stayed. The desert stretched endlessly now. No cell signal, no trees, no life. Just us, or maybe just them. Something in their energy had shifted. They spoke in glances, quiet nods, half smiles I wasn't meant to notice. I pressed my palms together in my lap, whispering a silent prayer. Not for safety, but for clarity, for truth. Can we stop soon? Yes. I need some air. Almost there, Amir replied, eyes on the horizon. Where's there? He didn't answer. Layla turned up the music again. A love song filled the car, something about holding on forever. The irony nearly made me choke. As the afternoon deepened, the light grew harsh. Shadows crawled over the dunes like slow-moving ghosts. Layla adjusted her scarf, finally speaking. Mom, you should rest. We'll stop soon. Her voice trembled slightly, the first sign of emotion all day. I reached for her hand. Layla. She pulled it away before our skin could touch. That hurt more than her words ever could. For the rest of the ride, I stared out at the endless expanse, a graveyard of wind and sand. The car hummed like a heartbeat, steady, cold. Memories flooded in. Her first bike, her wedding veil, the day I signed over part of my savings to help her. Each image burned brighter under the desert sun until they all blurred into one, a mother giving and a child taking. I pressed my forehead against the glass. The horizon wavered in the heat, like something alive. Maybe it was warning me. Maybe it was waiting. Then, over the noise of the engine and the hum of the tires, I heard Amir's voice, low, firm, final. This is far enough. The car slowed. Layla's head turned toward him. And my breath caught, because for the first time I saw fear flash in her eyes. The moment the car stopped, my stomach dropped. Something inside me whispered, this isn't just a stop. The engine's rumble faded into silence. Only the hiss of the desert wind filled the air, hot and sharp like fire on my skin. Amir turned off the ignition and leaned back, one hand still on the wheel. His lips curved into a smile I didn't recognize. This is far enough, he said again, his voice almost playful. I looked around. Nothing. No road signs, no trees, not even a bird. Just miles of sand stretching in every direction, swallowing the horizon. Why are we stopping here? I asked, forcing a light laugh. There's nothing around. Amir turned in his seat. You said you love peace and quiet. Thought we'd give you some. His words hung in the air, thick and sour. Layla stared straight ahead, her fingers clenched around her phone. Layla, I said softly. What's going on? She didn't move. Her jaw trembled, but she didn't look at me. Amir opened his door. The heat rushed in like a slap. Come on, he said. Stretch your legs. I hesitated. Something in his tone, too smooth, too calm, made my pulse quicken. Still I obeyed. Because that's what mothers do. As soon as my feet touched the sand, I felt dizzy. The air was so dry it hurt to breathe. The sun beat down, reflecting off every grain of gold like tiny mirrors. Amir walked around the car, his steps slow, deliberate. He opened the trunk, pretending to check something. Layla stayed inside. Her face was pale. Sweetheart, I said, shading my eyes. Is something wrong? Are you two fighting? She finally turned toward me, and that's when I saw it. Her eyes were wet, red at the edges. Get back in the car, I whispered. Let's go home. Her lips trembled. But she didn't move. Amir slammed the trunk shut. The sound echoed across the empty plains. He stepped closer, smiling. You said you love solitude, right? My heart skipped. What's that supposed to mean? He shrugged. Thought we'd give you some space. You seem like you need it. Space. I repeated. Out here. His grin widened. Exactly. I took a step back. Amir, this isn't funny. Layla's voice cracked through the heat. Amir, stop. But he didn't even look at her. He reached into his pocket and held up my phone like a prize. Looking for this. Froze. Give it back. He tilted his head, teasing. Don't worry. We'll keep it safe. Wouldn't want you to drop it out here. Panic clawed at my throat. Amir, I don't understand what you're doing. You don't have to. Layla pressed her hands to her face. Please just let's go. Go. Amir laughed. That's the plan. And then he stepped back into the driver's seat. For a second I thought it was a joke, some cruel, tasteless prank. But when the car doors slammed shut, the sound was final. Layla! I screamed, rushing toward her window. Layla, open the door. She turned to look at me, finally directly, and in her eyes I saw guilt, fear, and something else, surrender. Layla, please. What's happening? Her lips moved. I'm sorry, Mom. The car lurched forward. Sand exploded beneath the tires. Wait. I ran after it, my voice breaking. Don't leave me. Layla. The car didn't slow down. The roar of the engine faded into the distance. The wind carried the sound away, leaving me with nothing but the dry rasp of my own breathing. I stood there, frozen, dust stinging my face. I waited for the car to turn around. It didn't even hesitate. I turned in a slow circle. There was no road, no direction, no shade. Just sand, endless, merciless sand. And then, faintly, carried on the wind, I heard her voice. Good luck getting home, Mom. For a moment I couldn't process it. My mind refused to believe what my ears had heard. I had raised her, fed her, worked 2 jobs after her father died just to pay her tuition. I had given her my everything, and now she'd given me this. Desert, silence, death, dressed as sunlight. I sank to my knees, my palms pressing into the burning sand. Felt like punishment. The heat seared through my clothes, my skin, my memories. My throat felt dry as paper. Layla! I screamed again, voice cracking. Please! Only the wind answered. Sounded like laughter. I don't know how long I stayed there. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. The sky blurred at the edges, and the air shimmered with waves of heat. My mind flickered between disbelief and fury. Every moment I doubted my instincts came rushing back. The uneasy smiles, the whispers, the sudden kindness that had felt rehearsed. I had been blind. Blind by love, by guilt, by the desperate need to believe I still mattered to someone. I stood up, legs trembling. My shoes sank into the sand. I spun around, searching for the faintest sign of movement. A dust trail, a sound, anything. There was nothing. The sun was merciless now, straight overhead. My scarf clung to my neck, damp with sweat. I pressed my hands together, forcing myself to think. Don't panic. Find direction. But every direction looked the same. My lips burned. My throat screamed for water. My head pulsed with heat. Each breath came shallow, ragged. My feet carried me forward even though I didn't know where I was going. I told myself that if I just kept walking, I'd find a road, a car, a sign, something human, something kind. But the desert didn't care. It just swallowed my footprints like they never existed. Somewhere far ahead, the horizon shifted. A faint movement, a flicker like smoke rising. I squinted, shielding my eyes. It wasn't smoke. It was dust. A storm was building, slow and dark, swirling against the sun. The wind began to rise, lifting the sand around me in violent spirals. My heart hammered. The desert wasn't done with me yet. The sun doesn't forgive. It burns, blinds, and strips you of every illusion you ever had about safety. I had never known heat like that, not even the kitchen fires of my youth compared to the desert's fury. My scarf stuck to my neck, my lips cracked open like dry earth, and my heartbeat felt like it was echoing in my skull. Each step felt less like walking and more like surrendering to something ancient and cruel. When they drove off, I had believed, stupidly, that they'd come back. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe Layla would laugh, leap out, and run toward me yelling, "Got you, Mom!" But the road stayed empty. And the silence that followed was worse than the sound of the car fading away. The desert stretched endlessly, shimmering like broken glass under the sun. I turned one way, then the other, but there were no signs, no footprints, Nothing but shifting dunes and the faint hum of wind. I tried to follow my own tracks. They vanished in minutes. Walk. For hours, I think. Time didn't exist there. Only distance and thirst. My shoes filled with sand, my blouse clung to my skin, and I could feel the heat rising from the ground like I was walking on a giant stove. Layla. I whispered her name once, twice, as if saying it might pull her back to me. No answer. That's when the regret started to bloom. Quiet at first, then fierce. I remembered signing the check for her house down payment, telling her it was a gift. I remembered her tears when she thanked me, her voice shaking as she said, "You're the best mother in the world." And now that same daughter had left me to die among the dunes. What kind of love ends like that? My throat was raw. The half bottle of water in my bag had turned hot as soup. I took one last sip and stopped. Not because it was enough, but because I was afraid to finish it. Every shadow looked like a mirage. Every hill promised something it couldn't deliver. At one point I saw what looked like a tree. Tall, green, alive. I stumbled toward it, crying in relief. But when I reached it, it was nothing more than a twisted pile of metal, maybe from an old truck or signpost. The illusion was cruel, but the desert didn't care. Never does. I tried to remember which direction we came from, but all I could see was the same color, gold and beige and death. My head spun. I thought about how Layla's hand used to clutch mine in busy markets, how she'd cry if I walked even 2 steps ahead of her. And now she couldn't even look me in the eye. Was it guilt that made her turn away? Or had she truly stopped loving me long ago? I thought of Amir's smirk, that small, satisfied curl of his lip as the car door slammed shut. He had planned this. That much I knew now. But Layla, she had agreed. That betrayal was heavier than the heat pressing down on my shoulders. I screamed into the wind, but it swallowed my voice whole. It felt like shouting into God's silence. My legs gave out once, then twice. Each time I forced myself up. "Keep walking," I whispered. "Someone will come." But no one did. The sun lowered slightly, and the shadows grew longer. I found a cracked patch of earth and sat down, hugging my knees like a frightened child. I thought of home, my little garden, the jasmine vines I used to water every morning. The scent used to cling to my clothes. Now I reeked of sweat, dust, and fear. Somewhere between the memory of jasmine and the stinging of my eyes, tears began to fall. They didn't help. They just made the dust stick to my face like salt. I pulled my shawl tighter and looked ahead, and that's when I saw it. Half buried in the sand, tilted and rusted, was a signpost. I crawled toward it, my fingers trembling, nails scraping against the rough metal. Most of the paint was gone, but one word was still visible, a name I hadn't heard in years. It was the name of my late husband's old business, Nasir and Company. Mining. My breath caught. I hadn't realized where they'd brought me, or maybe I refused to believe it until that moment. This was where he had died. Layla had chosen this spot deliberately. My heart thudded. My vision blurred as I stared at that name. The ghost of the man I'd buried 20 years ago, the same place where everything had once begun to fall apart. I reached out and touched the metal, and it burned my fingertips. I didn't pull away. The desert didn't care if I lived or died. But maybe, just maybe, it wanted me to remember. A gust of wind rose suddenly, lifting the sand into a swirl. The sky darkened, faint gray clouds moving in from the distance. Storm was coming. And as I squinted against the growing wind, I thought I saw something. A shadow, a movement, far on the horizon. Someone, or something, was walking toward me. Cliffhanger. I freeze, unsure if it's a person or another mirage, until the figure raises a hand and waves. I thought the desert was my punishment. I didn't know it was also my husband's grave. When I brushed the sand off that rusted sign and saw the faded letters, Al-Noor Mining Project, my blood turned to ice. My late husband, Nasir, had worked there. It was the site of the accident that supposedly took his life 20 years ago. The place where my world had first fallen apart. I sat back hard on the hot ground, trembling. The air felt heavier now, like the sun itself was watching me. Memories I had buried deep began crawling to the surface, unwanted and sharp. I remembered the night the police came to my door. The knock was too gentle for the kind of news they carried. There was a cave-in, they said. He didn't make it. I had screamed so loud my throat bled. But what haunted me most wasn't his death. It was what followed. Nasir had left behind a small fortune in company shares, savings, and property deeds. I should have been secure, safe. Instead, everything vanished. Legal complications, the lawyer said. And the one who handled all that paperwork back then. Amir. He was still just my daughter's fiancé at the time. Young, charming, ambitious. He'd offered to help me sort through the mess. Said he knew someone who could untangle the inheritance. And I had trusted him. I wiped my face with shaking hands. No, I whispered to the empty air. No, it can't be. But it fit too perfectly. The land. The silence. The way they'd brought me here, to this specific place. This wasn't a random stretch of desert. It was a burial ground for secrets. Maybe they feared I'd uncover something. Maybe Amir had found a way to take what was mine all those years ago, and Layla had helped him cover it up. A mother's heart doesn't want to believe such things. But the truth doesn't ask for permission. Just hurts. The wind began to pick up, dragging the sand in waves across the roadless land. My body ached from exhaustion, but my mind was alive, sharper than it had been in years. I started walking toward the faint ruins I could see in the distance. Concrete, twisted metal, and what looked like an old trailer. My husband's old job site. The desert had almost swallowed it whole. Each step felt like walking through the past. I reached the trailer and pushed the half-broken door open. It groaned like something alive. Inside, the air was thick with dust. Faded papers littered the floor. Payroll sheets, machinery logs, and rusted tools. I ran my fingers over a broken desk, over the cracked glass of a family photo frame still sitting there. It was us, Nasir, Layla, and me. The picture was warped by heat, but his smile hadn't changed. Strong, proud, kind. A sob escaped me before I could stop it. You were trying to protect us, I whispered. And they used your death to destroy everything. I fell to my knees, dizzy from dehydration and rage. How deep did Amir's lies go? Had Layla known from the start, or did he poison her against me later? Images flashed through my mind. Their cold glances at family dinners, the sudden withdrawal of warmth, the way Layla started calling him for every decision, even the small ones. He had replaced me in her heart. And now, they had tried to erase me completely. A sharp noise cut through my thoughts. Metal scraping metal. My head snapped toward the door. Wind. Whoa. Too steady. Too deliberate. I crawled to the window. The desert was darkening. Clouds thickening overhead, turning the sky the color of bruised steel. And then I saw it. Far in the distance, faint but distinct. Headlights. My first instinct was hope. Maybe a passing truck, a rescue. Maybe someone who could help. I stood up too fast, almost falling, my heart hammering against my ribs. I waved my arms through the window gap, shouting, "Hey, please, over here." But the lights didn't move closer. They just hovered, flickering faintly through the storm haze. A trick of the light. Or someone watching. My breathing quickened. The headlights vanished, then reappeared a few meters to the right. They weren't moving forward. Just circling slowly. A chill crawled up my spine. The sand whipped harder, stinging my skin. The storm was almost upon me now, but fear burned hotter than the wind. "Amir," I whispered. The name felt like poison. "Are you still not finished?" I grabbed a rusted wrench from the floor. Useless, but it gave me courage. If they thought I would die quietly, they were wrong. Outside, the wind howled louder, pushing against the door, rattling it like a warning. The world turned red and gold under the storm's fury, visibility shrinking to almost nothing. I pressed myself against the trailer wall, heart pounding. The light flickered again, closer this time. And then, through the storm's roar, I heard something that made my blood run cold. Car door slammed. Someone was out there. I stepped to the edge of the doorway, gripping the wrench tight, the storm screaming in my ears. Through the haze of sand and dust, a shape emerged. Tall, steady, familiar. And even before I could see his face, I felt it. The weight of memory pressing down on my chest. It couldn't be. But my trembling lips still formed the word. Nasir. Cliffhanger. The figure raises a flashlight, and for a split second, his face looks exactly like my dead husband's. Then the light flickers out. For a moment, I thought the storm had swallowed me whole. Then I heard the deep rumble of an engine cutting through the wind. Slow, deliberate, alive. Headlights broke through the sandstorm, blinding and beautiful. I stumbled out of the trailer, waving both arms like a madwoman. My throat burned from screaming, but the truck stopped. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out, mid-60s, rugged, with deep lines carved into his face by sun and years. He wore an old scarf around his neck and looked at me like he'd seen ghosts before. "You'll die out here," he said simply, his voice gravelly. I nodded, too weak to reply. He helped me climb into the truck, his hands steady and kind. The interior smelled of oil and dust. He handed me a plastic bottle of water, and I drank like it was the last mercy on earth. I could barely get words out. "They left me here, my daughter and her husband." He didn't interrupt. Just drove, eyes fixed on the fading road as the storm slowly softened around us. The silence stretched between us, the kind that isn't cruel, just heavy with things unsaid. "My name's Kareem," he finally said. "Used to work these parts years back. You shouldn't be here." His tone wasn't just concern, it was warning. When I gathered enough strength, I whispered, "They brought me here. On purpose. Left me to die." Kareem's jaw tightened. People don't come this deep into Al-Noor without a reason. That name Nur still stung like acid. My husband worked there. Nasir Rahman. Years ago. For the first time, his eyes flicked toward me. I knew Nasir. My breath caught. "He was a good man," Kareem continued quietly. "Didn't deserve what happened." I turned to him, desperate. "You mean the mine collapse?" He gave a bitter laugh. "That wasn't no collapse. It was a cleanup." The words hit me harder than the desert sun ever could. What are you saying?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowed the truck, letting the wheels crunch softly over sand. "I was there that week. I did maintenance for the company. Heard things I shouldn't have. Nasir found out the project was hiding toxic waste. They wanted it buried, and anyone who talked." My pulse thundered. "You're lying." Kareem shook his head. "He tried to go public. Next day the accident happened. And after that, your son-in-law." I grabbed his arm. "You know Amir." Kareem's frown deepened. "That man used to work for the same investors. Paperwork, contracts, hush money. Always smiling while he ruined lives." The air in the cab grew heavy, suffocating. I pressed my hands to my mouth. The timeline fit too perfectly. Amir had appeared in our lives right after Nasir's death. A charming stranger offering help to a grieving widow. Kareem exhaled hard, eyes narrowing at the horizon. "You're not the first he's used." We drove in silence for a few minutes. The desert began to give way to cracked roads and sparse buildings, the bones of a forgotten town. My heart thudded with every passing shadow. Finally, Kareem pulled over beside an abandoned gas station. The sign above was faded, letters half missing, the windows broken. He turned off the engine. "I can take you to the police," he said. "But if you really want to understand what they did to you, and your husband, you'll need this." He reached behind his seat, rummaging through an old toolbox. When his hand came back, he was holding a large, sealed envelope. Its edges were yellowed, but the logo stamped on the front was unmistakable. AMR Holdings Private Limited. Amir's company. I stared at it, my breath shallow. "What is that?" Kareem's eyes met mine, steady and grim. "Everything they wanted to keep buried." The wind rattled the broken gas sign outside. A single loose bulb flickered weakly above us, humming in the silence. "I was supposed to deliver this years ago," Kareem said, voice low. "But people who asked questions disappeared. When I saw your face tonight, I knew who you were. I knew what I had to do." I felt my hands tremble as I reached for the envelope. My fingertips brushed the seal, the weight of years pressing into that thin layer of paper. Inside it, I could almost hear the whispers of the past, the lies, the signatures, the betrayal that had cost me my husband and nearly my life. But before I could open it, Kareem grabbed my wrist gently. "Be careful," he warned. "Once you read what's inside, you can't go back to being a victim. You'll have to fight." I swallowed hard. The word fight tasted strange in my mouth, like something I'd forgotten how to do. Outside, the desert wind screamed again, pushing sand against the glass. The storm hadn't left. It was just circling. I stared at the envelope, feeling my heartbeat echo in my ears. "I've already lost everything," I said softly. "What else can they take?" Kareem's gaze softened. "The truth," he said. "If you let them." I nodded slowly, my decision made, and tore open the envelope. Inside were several photocopied documents, stamped, signed, and a photograph. Froze. It was Amir, younger but unmistakable, shaking hands with a man I thought I'd never see again. My husband. Sincere. Alive. Cliffhanger. My hand slipped, the photo falling into the sand as I whispered, "He's alive." And in the distance, another car's headlights appeared, speeding toward us. I didn't know a single sheet of paper could destroy a soul. But when I opened that envelope, it felt like a gunshot to the heart. The papers trembled in my hands. Official seals, legal jargon, black ink that screamed betrayal louder than any scream I could manage. My name was there, my signature too. Except it wasn't mine. Every letter curved wrong, every stroke felt alien, like someone had traced me, not to honor me but to erase me. Inside those pages, everything my late husband had built for me, for us, had been stolen in silence. The house, the land, the inheritance meant to secure my final years. All transferred to one name that burned through my tears. Amir Malik. And beside his, Layla Malik. My daughter. For a moment the world tilted. The sound of the wind outside faded into a hollow silence. My pulse was the only thing I could hear. Fast, frightened, furious. I sank into the chair, staring at those cursed papers. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. "They took it all," I whispered. "Everything he left me." Kareem, the retired notary who'd helped me retrieve the envelope, stood across the small wooden table. His eyes were soft, but there was steel in his silence. He didn't speak at first, just watched me crumble with the patience of a man who'd seen too many truths destroy too many people. Finally he said quietly, "That's not your signature. It's a copy. See the pen pressure. The ink flow." I blinked hard, trying to focus. He pointed at the page, tracing a faint, irregular line. "Whoever did this used an old form. Probably scanned your signature from the property file. They wanted it to look authentic enough for a rushed approval." I swallowed. My throat was dry as ash. "They." He hesitated. "Your son-in-law, yes. But your daughter's name is here too." Co-signed. The room spun again. "Layla. My Layla. The same girl who used to bring me tea when I couldn't sleep. Who cried into my lap after her wedding when she thought Amir was cold. Well, she wouldn't. She couldn't." I pushed the papers away like they were poison. "No, you're wrong. She'd never." Kareem's voice was calm, but it sliced through my denial. "Mrs. Rahman, she did. You know it, even if you don't want to say it out loud." The truth was a monster standing right beside me, and I couldn't unsee it. I got up, pacing the small room. My breath came in jagged bursts. The sunlight through the window felt harsh, almost mocking. The house smelled faintly of dust and old paper, and every second made me want to scream. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "How long has this been going on?" Kareem sighed. "Months, maybe more. They waited for your husband's death to finalize everything. It's all too neat, too practiced. Amir probably handled the logistics. Your daughter might have signed without knowing what she was signing. I looked at him sharply. You don't believe that. He met my eyes. I don't want to believe it. A silence fell between us, heavy and suffocating. I stared down at the papers again, my reflection faint in the glass table beneath them. I saw a woman who looked like me but older, angrier, smaller. For a long moment I considered burning them, watching the ink curl and blacken, pretending none of it ever happened. But then, I remembered my husband's voice, the way he'd said before he passed, "Take care of yourself, Amina. Don't let anyone make you feel small." I pressed a hand over my chest. He trusted them, I murmured. We both did. Kareem nodded solemnly. Betrayal always comes dressed as trust. His words hit harder than I expected. I sat again, staring blankly. My mind was a storm of memories. Amir smiling across family dinners, Layla hugging me on Eid mornings, her laughter echoing through the halls of the house they'd stolen. Then came the images of their last visit. How distant she'd been, how impatient he seemed. The subtle glances they exchanged when I mentioned money. How they left early that night, claiming a business emergency. It had all been building up to this moment. I just hadn't seen it. Tears welled, hot and unstoppable. Maybe I deserve this, I whispered bitterly. Maybe I was too blind, too soft. Kareem's tone hardened. Don't you dare say that. Being kind isn't weakness. They preyed on that. But now you know. I looked up at him, eyes blurred with tears. What do I do now? He hesitated, then leaned closer. You can ruin him, he said, voice low and deliberate. If you're strong enough. The words lingered in the air like smoke. Ruin him. They sounded ugly, dangerous, and yet in that moment, right? I gathered the papers, folding them with slow precision. My hands had stopped trembling. A strange calm had taken over, the kind that comes after the storm when all that's left is purpose. I won't go to Layla, I said finally. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was colder, steadier. She's already chosen her side. Kareem gave a small nod, understanding. Then you'll need someone who knows how to fight his way through men like Amir. I know someone, I replied. Someone I trusted once. Outside, the wind howled through the narrow street, rattling the old shutters like restless ghosts. I stood, clutching the envelope close to my chest. Where are you going? Kareem asked. I turned toward the door, my shadow stretching across the floor. To end what they started, I said softly. And as I stepped out into the fading light, I pulled my phone from my bag. My thumb hovered over the contact list, trembling for just a second, then stopped at one name. It wasn't Layla's. It wasn't Amir's. It was my lawyer's. Pressed call. The line rang once, twice, then clicked. A voice answered, calm and professional. Mrs. Rahman? It's been a long time. Yes, I said, my eyes fixed on the horizon. And it's time to make things right. Cliffhanger. The call ended, and the wind carried my whisper into the dusk. I make this call not as a mother, but as a witness. People think revenge feels like fire. Hot, wild, consuming. But when I finally stood before their gate again, it felt like ice. 3 days had passed since the desert. 3 days of shaking hands, sleepless nights, and the endless echo of Kareem's voice. You can ruin him, if you're strong enough. And I was. I had spent those days in a small-town motel, washing the dust from my body but not from my soul. The lawyer, Farid, had come as soon as I called. His shock was clear when he saw the forged signatures, the company seals, the proof. He didn't ask me how I'd survived. He only said, "We'll make them answer." Now, here I was, standing at the same gate where Layla had hugged me goodbye, pretending love. The house was too perfect. The white walls, the glass balcony, the trimmed hedges, all built from what had once been mine. My husband's sweat. My years of sacrifice. Every brick screamed betrayal. Amir opened the gate, and for the first time he wasn't smiling. His confident eyes flickered, disbelief, then fear. He looked like a man seeing a ghost. "Hello, Amir," I said softly. My voice didn't tremble. "You didn't expect me to find my way back, did you?" Layla appeared behind him, still in her silk robe, her hair uncombed. She froze when she saw me, like she was looking at something impossible. Her lips parted, but no words came out. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. How are you?" I took a step closer. "Alive." Silence. Only the sound of the gate creaking and the distant hum of city life beyond their perfect walls. Amir forced a laugh, that same hollow charm he always used. "This is ridiculous. You must be mistaken. You can't just show up here." Farid, standing beside me, interrupted. Professional. Actually, she can. And she will." He handed Amir a folder, the same one Kareem had given me, now organized and sealed with legal precision. "Consider yourself served," he said. Amir's face drained of color. He flipped through the pages quickly. Faster, until his hands began to shake. Forgery. Fraud. Every sin he thought buried beneath the sand was now neatly printed and stamped with his name. Layla's voice cracked. "Amir, what is this?" He didn't answer. Farid spoke again, measured and cold. "Property transfers, bank statements, offshore accounts, and a falsified death insurance claim. All leading to you and Mrs. Rahman's son-in-law." I watched their faces crumble. First confusion, then terror, then silence. No screaming. No denial. Just the weight of truth crashing down. Layla turned to me, tears streaming. "Mom, please, I didn't know." "He told me." I raised a hand. "Don't lie to me again, Layla." Her sob caught in her throat. She reached out, but I stepped back. "You left me to die," I whispered. "You watched him drive away. You didn't even look back." Her knees buckled. She covered her face. "He said you'd ruin us. That you wanted to take everything." I felt something twist in my chest. Grief, rage, love, all fighting for space. "Everything I had was for you," I said. "You didn't need to steal it. You just had to ask." Amir stepped forward, his voice rising. "Enough of this emotional nonsense. You think a few papers will destroy me? I have connections." "You had," Farid cut in. "The police already have copies." The color drained from Amir's face. Right on cue, a distant siren pierced the quiet street. Grew louder, closer. Neighbors peeked through windows as a black car pulled up behind me. The sound of car doors slamming echoed through the air like judgment itself. Amir's arrogance melted into panic. "You can't do this," he shouted. "You think you'll win. You're nothing." I stepped closer until my face was inches from his. My voice was calm, but every word trembled with years of buried pain. "You left me in the desert," I said slowly. "But I found my way to justice." The officers approached, asking for Amir Rahman by name. He tried to back away, but there was nowhere left to go. Layla's screams broke through the chaos. "Mom, please. Don't let them take him. He made me do it, I swear." The words hit me like a blade. He made me do it. My head spun as the officers placed handcuffs on Amir. His eyes locked on mine, hatred burning through his fear. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You think you're free. You're not." I didn't answer. Because behind him my daughter was still crying, shaking, begging, her voice raw with guilt. "Mom, please," she sobbed, falling to her knees as the police led Amir away. I didn't know what he'd planned. "Please, forgive me." The street fell silent except for her cries. And I stood there, my heart splitting in two. Part of me still her mother, part of me something colder, harder, necessary. I wanted to run to her. I wanted to scream. But all I could do was stare. The officers turned toward me. "Ma'am, we'll need your statement at the station." I nodded numbly. "Of course." But as they drove away with Amir in the back seat and Layla sobbing in the doorway, One thought clawed at my chest. If he made her do it, then what else had she done for him? Cliffhanger. I looked up just as Farid's phone buzzed. His expression shifted from calm to shock. "We have a problem," he said quietly. "The money's already gone. Some victories taste like ash." The morning after Amir's arrest, I sat in a cold interrogation room, staring at my reflection in the metal table, and wondered what justice was supposed to feel like. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't peace. It was exhaustion. A hollow ache that filled every corner of me. Layla sat across the room, her wrists trembling, her eyes swollen from crying. She looked nothing like the girl who'd waved goodbye as they left me in the desert. That Layla had been polished, confident, cruel in her silence. This one looked like a frightened child who had finally realized monsters weren't under her bed. They slept beside her. I didn't speak first. Couldn't. The officer nodded to her. "You can start when you're ready." Layla's lips quivered. He said it was all legal." Her voice cracked. "He told me you were transferring the properties to me. That you wanted me to have control because you were getting old, and you didn't trust the others." Her words hit like stones, each one carving deeper into my chest. "He made me sign," she whispered. "He said it was for our future, that you wanted me to handle everything. He even showed me papers with your handwriting." She broke down then, sobbing into her hands. I sat frozen, gripping my own fingers until my nails drew blood. Amir's voice still echoed in my memory. "You think you'll win? You're nothing." But looking at Layla, I realized his real victory wasn't the money. It was turning my daughter into a weapon against me. The officer looked at me gently. "Would you like to respond?" I swallowed hard. My voice came out as a whisper. "Did you really think I would leave you nothing, Layla?" She lifted her head, eyes red and desperate. "I didn't know, Mama. He said you were planning to give it all to charity. That I'd have nothing once you were gone." My heart cracked. She'd been manipulated, yes, but she'd also believed him. That was the deepest wound of all. For a moment I wanted to scream. To ask her how she could trust him over her own mother. But then I saw the guilt in her eyes. Raw, crushing, and something inside me softened. "I wanted to hate you," I said quietly. "God knows I did. But I can't." She cried harder. "I swear I didn't know he forged your signature. I found out only when the lawyer called. When the police came. He said if I told anyone, he'd tell them I helped." Her body shook with every word. The room felt smaller, heavier. Even the air tasted metallic. The officer took notes silently while Farid stood by the door. His expression unreadable. After a long silence I whispered, "You watched him leave me there, Layla. You didn't stop him." She pressed her hands to her face. "He said you'd only follow us home. That it was just to scare you. He promised we'd come back after an hour. But he drove off." I screamed, "Mama, I did." "He told me to shut up." Tears blurred my vision. For the first time I didn't know if I was crying for her or for the woman I used to be. The mother who believed love could fix everything. The officer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Rahman, your statement confirms she was coerced. But the documents carry her signature. We'll need your decision on how you wish to proceed." Farid looked at me carefully. His tone soft but firm. "Amir's charges are solid. Fraud. Forgery. Attempted murder. But your daughter's name is still on those files. The prosecution will ask, do you want her tried as an accomplice?" The words felt like a blade twisting slow and deep. Layla looked up, panic flashing in her eyes. "Mama, please. Please don't let them." Understood. My legs felt unsteady, but my voice didn't waver. "She'll tell the truth. Every word. That's her punishment." Farid studied me. "You understand what that means. She'll be tied to the case. Her confession might clear you, but it could still destroy her." I nodded slowly. "Then maybe destruction is the only way we start again." Layla sobbed quietly, her head in her hands. When the officer left us alone, The silence between us was unbearable. The clock ticked softly, each second heavier than the last. Finally, Layla whispered, "You must hate me." I looked at her. "I hate what you became," I said softly. "But I remember the girl who used to wait by the window for me to come home. I hope she's still somewhere inside you." Her lip trembled. "She's gone, Mama. I let her die when I chose him." "No," I said. "You let him bury her. Now it's your turn to dig her out." For the first time she looked me in the eyes, and I saw something fragile flicker back to life. Shame, regret, maybe even love. The guard entered to escort her back to holding. She turned at the door, tears streaking her face. "I'll tell them everything," she said. "All of it. What he did to you. What he made me do." I nodded once. My throat ached too much to speak. When she was gone, the room felt emptier than ever. Farid closed his folder, then sat across from me. "You did the right thing," he said softly. "Did I?" "Yes. Because it doesn't feel like it." He sighed. "Justice rarely feels right. It just restores balance." I leaned back, my hands trembling in my lap. "Balance," I murmured. "After everything, I don't even know what that means anymore." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "The court will want to know officially. Will you testify against your daughter too?" The question hung in the air like smoke, heavy and choking. I looked toward the door where she'd disappeared moments ago, her voice still echoing in my mind. "He made me do it." My chest tightened. I wanted to answer. I wanted to scream. But no words came. Only the weight of a mother's heart, torn between justice and blood. Cliffhanger. Farid waited, pen poised above the paper. "Mrs. Rahman," he asked gently, "should I write yes or no? Some endings don't feel like justice. They feel like quiet mornings." Months after the trial, the world had gone still again. No more lawyers, no more headlines. Just me, a house full of echoes, and a silence that didn't hurt anymore. Amir was gone. 10 years, they said. Fraud, attempted murder, conspiracy. His empire of lies collapsed faster than anyone expected. When the verdict came, I didn't cry. I just exhaled, like releasing a breath I'd been holding for years. Layla wasn't in a cell. She'd been spared prison for testifying. Probation, therapy, restitution. Words that sounded clinical, but I knew the real sentence was guilt. And guilt, I'd learned, is heavier than iron. I moved back into my old house, the one with cracked paint and faded curtains, the same one they tried to steal. But when I stepped through the front door, I didn't see ruin. I saw survival. The air smelled of dust and lemon polish. The clock still ticked in the hallway, the one my husband had hung himself. His photo on the wall smiled softly at me, untouched by time. I ran my fingers over the frame. "We made it back," I whispered. But not the way we imagined. Some nights, I still woke to the sound of wind, the same howling that once filled my ears in the desert. But instead of fear, it brought a strange comfort. That endless silence had stripped me down to the core of who I was. The desert doesn't care if you're rich, or kind, or betrayed. It only asks one question. Will you keep walking? Every morning I walked to the porch with my tea. The horizon stretched before me. Golden, vast, endless. That same horizon they'd left me under. But now, when I looked at it, I didn't see abandonment. I saw a mirror of my endurance. Sometimes Layla called. Her voice carried both distance and longing. "Are you eating well, Mama?" she'd ask softly. "I am," I'd say. "And you?" There would always be that pause, that space filled with everything neither of us could say. One evening she came to visit. She stood at the gate, unsure whether to come closer. I smiled faintly. "You can come in, Layla. It's still your home too." Her eyes filled with tears. "After everything I did, you still say that?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Because I lost a daughter once. I won't lose her twice." She hugged me then, trembling, broken, real. For a long time neither of us spoke. The years of distance melted into that single moment. Forgiveness didn't come as words. Came as breath, shared, shaky, human. After she left, I sat on the porch again. The sky was painted in gold and violet. I thought of Kareem, the stranger who stopped that day. I never saw him again, but I still kept the empty water bottle he gave me, a small token of mercy. Sometimes I wondered if he'd been sent by fate, or maybe by my late husband himself. Life became simple after that. No luxury, no noise, no expectations. Just mornings filled with light and nights filled with peace. I tended the garden, repainted the walls, and found joy in the smallest things. The smell of rain, the chirp of a sparrow, the softness of soil beneath my hands. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine again. One afternoon, as I swept the porch, a delivery van stopped outside. The driver handed me an envelope. No name, no return address. Inside was a short note. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Layla. A small necklace fell out, the one she used to wear as a child. The gold was tarnished, but the pendant still gleamed faintly in the sun. I pressed it to my chest and smiled through tears. Some wounds never heal, but they stop bleeding. Later I walked down the old dirt road behind the house. The same path where Amir once laughed at my weakness. The desert wind brushed my face, carrying whispers of sand and memory. I closed my eyes and let the heat sink into my skin. For the first time it didn't burn, it blessed. I thought about the woman I used to be. Timid, apologetic, desperate for approval. She had died out there somewhere between the dunes. But in her place, another had risen. One who knew her own worth. People think rebirth happens in hospitals or temples or therapy rooms. Mine happened under a sun that wanted me gone. Now every step I take across that porch, every breath I draw, feels like defiance. Not against them, but against who I used to be. I keep my husband's picture on the nightstand. Sometimes I talk to him, not with sadness but gratitude. I survived, Rahim, I tell him. I survived them all. At night, when the wind hums through the trees, I remember that terrible day. Amir's mocking smile, Layla's cold silence, the car speeding away. But instead of anger I feel something else. Freedom. They left me broken, but I walked home whole. I sip my tea, watching the sun slip behind the dunes, the horizon glowing like fire. My scars ache when the air cools, but they also remind me I'm still here. I wasn't just a mother, or a victim, or a widow. I was a woman reborn from sand and betrayal. Final emotional sting. They left me to die in the desert, but that's where I learned to live again.